How does this happen? I mean, Gabriel Iglesias is in this movie. Gabriel Iglesias! Norm of the North is a new animated movie that's come out in January 2016. Already we can tell this is going to be fun. And it stars Rob Schneider playing as a bear named Norm. And basically he finds out that this evil villain guy named Mr. Green, and he wants to put houses in the Arctic and sell them. Because the Arctic is apparently this beautiful place, and so he wants to sell houses in the Arctic. And so Norm decides to go on the mission into New York City and stop him from putting those houses from the Arctic.
Are you serious?
This makes no sense. For starters, one thing that I really have to question: who on earth would want to live in Antarctica? Antarctica is freezing cold, and you need to take a lot of safety precautions just so you don't die of hypothermia or frostbite or anything like that. As far as temperature goes, Antarctica and the Arctic are very, very dangerous places because of how cold they are. Who on earth would want to live in Antarctica? I would be waiting throughout the entire movie, just waiting for someone to walk and going, "Excuse me, Mr. Green, why are you having these houses set in Antarctica? No one wants to live in a place that cold. It is one of the stupidest ideas I've ever heard in my life. Why are you trying to sell houses in the Arctic? Because that is a ridiculous premise. In fact, a lot of the characters are idiots in this movie. And I mean a lot of them. This movie is incredibly stupid. Now, I've actually seen lots and lots of very, very negative reviews of this movie. One of the first of which was Chris Stuckman, and lots of other friends of mine have seen the movie and gave them very, very negative reviews. And I thought, why not see this movie myself, just to add to it? And I agree, this is a bad movie. Really bad. And lots of really stupid moments that make no sense, like security camera footage that has professional close-up and medium shots and camera cuts, even though security camera footage does not work like that. Or the fact that half of the characters in this movie are convinced that Norm is just a guy in a costume, and they actually have to think, is he a real bear or is he just a guy in a costume? Like, maybe he's a real bear, like he smells like a real bear. Oh my gosh, you guys are idiots! Also, spoiler alert, but I don't really care. But towards the end of the movie, to increase the stakes, there's basically a false version. Like, what is happening is that Norm is about to give his big speech about how bad these guys are being to the Antarctica and how they are being nasty to the environment and everything. And then suddenly the villain, Mr. Green, decides to play a false announcement to make it sound like that he said he approved, even though he never moved his mouth and everyone still thinks it was actually him. But if he wanted to make a speech, he just stands there, completely silent. Doesn't say anything. You could just simply say, that is not true, I actually am against it, and still give his speech. But he just stands there. The CGI in this movie is also terrible. Like, the first shot of the movie is a scene where it comes down onto like a water with a boat on it. And the water, it just doesn't feel like it meshes with the characters in the water or the boat. And the boat itself looks very plastic, very fake looking. And the script was very poorly written. All the characters feel very one-dimensional. None of the characters in this movie feel like real people to me. They just feel like people that were written by humans. They don't feel real to me. They don't feel like they're people with their own heads and their own brains, and they don't feel like they control themselves. They feel like they are puppets on a string in a way. They don't feel like real people. Not only that, but also the movie is not funny. This is a kids movie and it's supposed to be a comedy, which means one thing: make you laugh. I barely laughed in this movie. Barely. That pun was not intentional, I promise. There are lots of peeing, pooping, burping, farting jokes in this movie, and I mean a lot of them. There's one joke in the movie where 3 characters are peeing in a fish tank or something, and it goes on forever. And I laughed to myself, but I laughed for the wrong reason, saying, this is just ridiculous, I can't believe it's still going. This movie also tried to be hip and cool because occasionally they use very hip, cool kind of music, which I just can't stand. Some of my favourite songs of all time are actually not dubstep or any of that new modern stuff. My favourite song of all time is the song The Final Countdown from Europe, and that song came out in the 80s. And plus, new hip modern music, it never lasts. Who ever sings Gangnam Style or the Harlem Shake anymore? No one, because they've become dated and people have moved on to other stuff. I'm actually hearing the song Happy a lot less often as well. And also, we're all just going to ignore the fact that Norm likes natural things. He likes being around nature. He doesn't want man-made stuff coming into his place, and yet he has no problem dancing while listening to his iPod. Bit hypocritical, don't you think, Norm? Another thing that really annoys me is that a lot of the adults in this movie are seriously thinking on whether or not he's an actual bear. Like, oh, this is a really realistic costume and everything. But there is one character that knows that he's a real bear, and not only doesn't freak out, but like, hey, I know what you're actually doing. You're trying to save the environment. Let's be friends. And the really crazy thing is the only character that knows for a fact that the bear is real is a stupid 12-year-old kid. And I want to talk about the most disappointing aspect of this entire movie, Gabriel Iglesias. Now, this is personally my favorite stand-up comedian ever. This is such a funny guy. One of, if not my favorite movie of 2014, other than Big Hero 6, is actually the Gabriel Iglesias Fluffy movie. Because this is such a funny guy.
Oh my god, yes!
And the fact that he was in this movie, I was thinking, okay, maybe he can make the movie somewhat redeemable for me. He doesn't, it really doesn't. The character Gabriel plays as is only in like 1 or 2 scenes of the entire movie, and they don't give him anything funny to say. And so I was really severely disappointed in Gabriel Iglesias because I was hoping that he could just make the movie maybe more bearable. No pun intended, again. But he really doesn't. Now, I don't want you guys to get the idea that I think that this is the worst movie I've ever seen. It could possibly be one of them, but I wouldn't say it's the worst. It's not even the worst animated movie I've ever seen. It's nowhere near as bad or painful to watch as movies like Shark Tale, in my opinion. I absolutely hated Shark Tale. But I still agree that this is a very bad movie, and there's so many problems with it. There wasn't anything about it that really wanted me to rip my eyes out or something, or my ears or anything like that. But I can tell that this is a bad movie, and I don't think there's anything about this movie worth recommending. You don't need to see this movie. You'll be bored. Really, that's my main problem with the movie. I found it rather boring. Now, was it the most boring film I've ever seen? No, it wasn't. But I was pretty bored with the movie, and quite a few times I did want to turn the movie off just because I wanted to do something else. But I'm a strong believer of the saying that you can't fully judge a movie without seeing the whole thing yet. And so I stayed and I sat there and I watched the entire film. And it really doesn't get that much better, in my opinion. The movie doesn't have any light ends or any really great moments. It's not even a movie that is so bad that it's good kind of movie. It's just a really bad movie with a lot of problems. It's not funny and it's just bland and dull, and you don't need to see it at all. You don't even see it out of curiosity because there's nothing about it that's redeemable. Definitely go and see Zootopia though. This is a much better movie. Please support this movie. It deserves your money. Guys, don't see this movie. I almost think I wasted my time seeing it myself, and I only watched just for the sake of reviewing it myself. Hasta la vista, baby.